So this week in Module 3, we are going to work on populating our scene with models and textures and really filling it up so that it feels like a real place. We will be using models of our own as well as assets from the asset store to make our levels look complete and match the vision that we have for them. So this is the level as I have it, and if I turn on the lighting, you can see that I've rebaked this scene so that it all seems to go together and match fairly well. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to build, let's see, maybe a doorway with a door. So let's say that this area here, this is good, it's big. When I walk through it, it feels kind of too big to be realistic for this level. It seems to match the, it's just a little on the big side. This doorway I can, go left and right in. It's more of a hallway and less of a more, human-sized doorway. So what we could build is a 3D object cube. And if we hold down Control and Shift, we can move it down to the center here. And then we can use our inspector to say, let's move this to -10 and 0 and 12. And that's roughly the right spot for it. And I'm going to move it up to a Y of 2. And then just start to shape it a little bit. So we'll make it thin. We'll make it stretch to fit. We might even snap this to a corner and then just use the rectangles to move this up, or set the Y value to 4 because we know that's what the size needs to be. And then we can snap it back to this. And so now I've got this hallway, which I could then bring in on this side, duplicate it, and bring it in on this side, and duplicate it. And we could drag this corner and snap it so that it matched this size here. I'll probably dial in these numbers correctly. So on all three of them, I want their x value to be 0.1. And on this, I'll set it to 1. And on this, I'll set it to 1. And then this will be 2. That means that I'll have a 2-meter opening, which is about double of what the first-person controller's width is. And that's great. That's just what we want. So both of these, I'm going to scoot back. And then what's the height on this? It's 1.13. So let's set this to 1. And so now we have a 2-meter wide by 3-meter wide doorway. And that's fantastic. Let's duplicate this one more time and set its Y value to 3. And now we actually have a doorway which we could open up. But if we try to rotate it, it's going to hinge around the center. And so what we want to build is a hinge around the corner. So we know what this is. I'm going to build an empty game object. First I'm going to focus on it. So F to focus. Then I'm going to create an empty game object, and we can name this door hinge. Maybe door pivot. And I'm just going to move it over by 1.5. So on the Z, maybe 10.5. That's not quite right, is it? Maybe 10.75. You know what? Let's make this a different color, shall we? And then let's select this pivot and just move it into place. So it looks like it just needs to be 11. And if I make the door a child of the door pivot, well, when I move the door pivot around its pivot point, the door rotates, just follows along with it. So here's the parent object, and here's the child object. And if I rotate the child moves like this. But if I rotate the parent, the child comes along with it. That's what's happening here. As the parent rotates, the child stays where it is relative to where it wants to be. If we rotate both, if we make it a child, it rotates with. Okay. So I like that. I'm going to come in here and rotate it so that it's mostly open. And then maybe I'll give it a door handle. Maybe just a simple cube. I can call it a door handle. I can make it a child of the pivot point. I can set its rotation to 0 so it matches the rotation. And then I can move it into position. Way too large. Way too large. Something like that. Set it at the right height. And then maybe duplicate it and make this one smaller. So it's a little, I built it on the wrong axis. Let's turn the lights off for a minute so I can see better. So I'm looking for something like that, and then I'm going to duplicate it and rotate it, and then just move to offset it. And then we can select all of these and inset them slightly, and then there's my door and my door handle. We don't have what we need to be able to make a door open and close yet. Oh, I better fix that. That was accidental. But yeah, that doorway feels cozier. I like it. And, you know, having the handle at eye level, that's probably a bit high, so maybe we'll lower those. And you mustn't think of things like that as being mistakes. It's just called iterative design. Okay, you build it fast, you try it out, and then you fix it, or you improve upon it. Okay, still basically at eye level. How about there? That's appropriate. I like it. Okay. So let me fix this. And well, one of the things we can do, so we've got a really long hierarchy with a whole lot of things in it that we're never going to touch again. So let's clean this up. So at 0, 0, 0, I'm going to create an empty game object, and I'm just going to call it static game objects. So empty game object, static game objects, and I'm going to set it at 0, 0, 0, so it's easy to find. And then there's two reasons. The other reason is if I move an object relative to the parent, it might not have the same world coordinates as it does local coordinates relative to its parent. But if you've got 0, 0, 0 where your empty game object folders are, its world position will be the same as its local position. So all of my floors, let's go ahead and build another game object just for the floors. Create empty floors. I'm going to duplicate it and have one for walls. Duplicate it and have one for ceiling. All of those will be childs of the static game objects. All of my floors. Will be children of floors. I think. Nope, it didn't like that. Okay, well, fine. So ceilings. And then walls. then floors. Oh, too far. And I suspect that most of these cubes are my pivots. I guess this one's a doorway. So let's go ahead and select my doorway. Hit F. We'll build an empty game object called doorway. And I can select all of the bits of my door to be a child of the doorway. And the doorway can be a child of my static game object as well. And then all of these are my light fixtures. So I'll build an empty game object, create empty at light fixtures. Okay. Now our hierarchy isn't even as long as all of this. Let's build one for the railings. Game object empty railing. And actually that should be called staircase. So let's have a look at this prefab for our doorway. Not prefab, it's not a prefab yet, but I'm going to make it a prefab right now. We're going to create a new folder, and I want you to do this with me, named Prefabs. And I want you to drag the doorway, the empty game object, from the hierarchy to this Prefabs folder. If we double click on this prefab, it'll open up in the prefab view. We can just hit this little arrow up at the top right here to go back to our scene. And then we can edit this however we want to. But I'll get back to editing it in just a second. What I want to do next is duplicate it for this side right here. So I'm just going to drag it from the prefabs folder out to here, rotate it around, and vertex snap it into position. Voila. New prefab. And let's go ahead and I'll put this two other places. Maybe right here. New doorway. Snap. And I can just duplicate it at this point and snap it out right there. And maybe one of the things that we can do is select this door pivot and rotate it so that this door is open a lot more than the rest. But otherwise, they're all identical. So let's check out the power of prefabs. By going to our doorway, let's say that we wanted to make it a little bit more ornate. Maybe I will duplicate this, shrink it down a little bit, just a little bit further out. And then I'm going to duplicate both of these, well, one at a time. Move it out, shrink it down, duplicate, move it out, shrink it down. We can go into isometric mode and make sure that we're making these roughly the same outline out there. So I like that. But then let's go ahead and give these some different colors. So I'm going to go to my materials and set these back panels as my floor texture. And these front panels we'll make blue. And we'll just do it on the one side, the outside. When we go back to our scene, you will notice those exist in every one of the prefabs. Now, I apologize. I think those additions that we made look really ugly. But the power is that any change that we make is the same everywhere. Now, if I tweak this one, it's going to be different just for this one. But if I go into the prefab and edit the prefab, well, now I can come in here and try to make it right. Maybe I can stretch this here. Maybe I can stretch these as well. Let's go into isometric mode. That's too much. So maybe that's a little bit better. And when I go back to my scene, they will be updated in all of those places. It's really powerful tool. It's a really powerful tool. I will likely make my light fixtures be prefabs as well. Let's build one more prefab. Let's build a really ugly torch. So I'm going to build this box to sit here. And then I'm going to build a 3D object cylinder. Set its size down to, I don't know, 0.1. Maybe 0.2. And this will be 0.4. Okay, good. So we'll rotate it about 30 degrees, maybe 15 degrees. And I just want to move it into place so that it's sticking out from this box. And then on top, we will build a light, point light. And I will build this to be kind of more of an orange-red, like that. Let's turn that gizmo off for a second. And then maybe we can build a 3D object sphere. That we set to be an emissive orange. So I'm going to duplicate this light, and I'm going to name it torch. And I'm going to change this color to be kind of a nice yellow. And then drag it onto my torch there. So let's select these objects and hit F to focus. That's fine. Game object, create empty. This is torch. And the 4 of these objects become children of the torch. And then the torch is dragged into the prefabs folder. Now we can take our torch and move it into position. Maybe one on either side. Or, furthermore, let's go ahead and go to our doorway, drag our torch into the scene, and then come back. Now there's a torch on every doorway. And we forgot about the back side of the door, so let's look around behind here, duplicate this one, and maybe move it out to something like this. And maybe we want to move this so that it's not clipping through. And when we go back, everywhere that we have a doorway, we have torches. And so now we have a prefab that holds another prefab. And if we update our torch prefab, maybe to center this box a little bit better, that could break some things too. We might not want to do that. Let's say that we wanted to have a little fire catcher here, real thin, but then a little bit bigger like that. When I make that change, it appears in all of the other places. Okay. So that's all I'll say about prefabs for now. Don't forget to bake your lighting. Let's go to the Unity Asset Store and search for indoor assets. So there's 179 results. Unfortunately, most of them cost money. If we go to the free assets, it limits it down to 4. The Sci-Fi Starter Kit looks good, but this Snaps prototype, I am a big fan of. So the Snaps prototype has a bunch of assets. They're low poly, but you can build doorways and windows and desks and even some plants. Even some air conditioning vents. And I want you to find something like this. We might just search for snaps. So there's also the Sci-Fi Kit, Sci-Fi Industrial. And that's also free. And if we search by free assets, what are we going to get? A bunch of things that are not the Snaps prototypes. But anything you find that you say, hey, I want this in my game, you should check it out. So I'm going to use the Snaps prototypes for Sci-Fi Industrial. Add to my assets. It'll ask me to log in. I've already got it downloaded. I'm going to go to the Window Package Manager. I like to tuck this behind the scene view sometimes. And under my assets, I'm just going to search for snaps. One of the cool things that the snaps prototype does, no results. Well, that's a bummer. Hold, please. Turns out I just needed to load more of them. One of the great things that the snaps prototypes does is it will have the prototype version, which will perfectly match the HD version. So if you can see, the construction site here just builds in low poly things, but then I can go and replace those prefabs with the high definition models and textures. And those are cool. I think I got them from Humble Bundle. You should always be checking Humble Bundle for Unity prototypes. So let's go Sci-Fi Industrial, download. These should be very low sizes. This is 4 megabytes. You don't want to be downloading assets that are more than like 100 megabytes. Just because it's going to make it so that working on your project is going to take a long time and opening it will take a while, and that's my recommendation. Alright, so now that that is imported, I can go back to my scene, and I can go to my assets folder, and let's have a look down here. Under Asset Store Originals, Snaps Prototypes, Sci-Fi Industrial, Prefabs, there's Decor, Nested Prefabs, so a deck floor, a deck wall, power spot, support. So these are prefabs with other prefabs inside of them, that's why they're nested. And then props, and then structure, and it's possible sample scenes. Yes, so we can look at sample layout. Oh no, here we are with our pink again, so let's fix that. Edit, render pipeline, universal render pipeline, upgrade project materials. Proceed. All right. So let's turn off the lighting for a minute to just have a look at everything that they've got. They've got supports. They've got this tall staircase. They've got pipes of various sizes that can be moved around. Generators. Larger support structures. That's very large. Crates of various kinds. I thought they had some lights in here. Yeah, a couple lights just hanging out to show off. And so the example scene will give you examples of what's possible, what you can put together, and things like that. And then so here's the list of supports. And then so I'm just going to go back into my scene. Nope, where is that scene? Here it is, indoor level. And I can just begin adding these prefabs. Let's see what some of these nested prefabs look like. I can draw them over here. Okay, so that's a nested floor. How about a power spot? Oh, that's cool. Sure, let's just put a couple of these into here. And if we make sure that it's static, it'll generate the lighting. And I can bring this in like that. And have a duplicate of it on the other wall. Fantastic. And what are these supports? Yes, look at that. That's awesome. Now this is a little bit large for what I have. So I could just make it smaller. I'll probably just make it smaller. So let's find out what works. Let's do 0.8. That seems to work just fine. And I will just build several of these into my scene. -6. And then when I duplicate this, so these will be 12 apart, I think. Well, let's keep going. Let's do something like that. Or let's just duplicate this, both of the supports. And now I've got pretty good supports here. Let's move this down with the others. And I can duplicate all 4 of these. And move them into the new area. And pretty much voila, just like that. My level is much more visually interesting. There's a balcony that I can replace the previous balcony that I had. So we can just move this into place. Look, it's already built on 4 meter a 4 meter grid. So that's actually wonderful. And let's move this over so it matches maybe a little bit more. And I can take maybe these 3 and duplicate them or snap them into position, and then I could remove this block underneath completely. So this week you've got a lot of work to do. Find a snaps toolkit that you like, or take bits and pieces that you like and build your world with these prefabs. That's all I've got. Good luck.